What's up, YouTube? I got something really important to say. I talked about this years ago on my channel, in really early parts of my channel, but I didn't quite break it down as much as I'm going to here. So let's hope the Christians that watch this can comprehend it, despite how incredibly retarded they are. Yeah. Basically, everybody knows this at this point. Practically everybody knows this at this point, which is that the Bible says a lot of things that don't make sense. At least according to me. But one of my biggest criticisms is of God as a character in the Bible in particular. And what can I say other than, well, there's really nothing else to say here other than one of the most ridiculous things he has done is so obviously a sin, according to his own logic. First of all, let's remember one of the first rules in the Bible, which is that God said breaking the rules is a sin. And God said if he broke his own rules, he's a sinner. He said the only reason he isn't sinning is because he's sticking to his own rules. Say, for instance, if he committed adultery, he could break that rule, and God would not say that if he committed it, it wasn't breaking the rules and therefore sin. He would just say, well, it is breaking the rules and therefore it is sin. So God obviously thinks that if he breaks his own rules, it doesn't mean that he is exempt from being charged guilty of doing a crime by doing that. He doesn't think that. So the second thing is that God in the Bible has had a tendency of torturing creatures that I'd say are really in ways that are really not well thought out. In one instance, I'd say that is, I mean, I don't understand how Christians could not comprehend this at this point. I don't understand how anybody would be unable to comprehend this at this point who watches this video. Just the fact that obviously there is no way that taking Satan, Lucifer, which is the embodiment of sin itself, to the point where if you picked this character up in your hands, if you were God, you'd be picking up sin itself. And physically throwing it would be throwing sin at something, which is, I think it goes without saying that that is a sin, or could be a sin. Because according to the laws of physics, if you throw sin, could have disastrous consequences. So yeah, if you throw sin, it's obviously a sin. Because when you throw an object, you don't make it more rational in its traits or qualities, or like stronger at resisting sin. You just like damage the object. So isn't God a sinner for throwing sin? Because when you throw it, you make it more of a sin. Like, I guess some people might say, like, okay, that's just not, that's just a possibility, but that's not how it went, because God was smarter than that. He picked up Satan, or Lucifer, whatever you want to call it, and he used his magical powers to make it a being that did not obey the laws of physics when he threw it. And it just, like, it just didn't. And so it didn't get torn apart or hurt from getting thrown or picked up the way it would if the laws of physics were acting how they're supposed to regularly. But the only problem with this is that the Bible says God, first of all, the Bible does not say God did that. The Bible says that if God did, it would say it. Second of all, if God really did this, it's a contradiction, because the Bible says God cannot like intervene to certain levels of sin, like, because I mean, some people would say this is a sin that could be intervened upon, but depends how you interpret the Bible and certain definitions of certain verses in the Bible. So that one is not as much. I mean, for instance, God has intervened on sin in the Bible when the world was so much sin, he flooded it. Was it appropriate to intervene upon the sin instead of let nature take its course with sin? Well, honestly, if you let nature take its course with sin, technically it's not really a sin. But, you know, it just depends on the conditions, honestly. Like, if you intervene upon sin to where it's so bad that if you don't do something about it to help others, like, helping others with the sin is better than not. So intervening makes more sense. So, but yeah, honestly, it does not say anywhere in the Bible that when Lucifer was thrown from heaven to earth, that his experience in turmoil of enduring that was that it was not like the laws of physics. It like just sounds like it enhanced his suffering and turmoil as being what he is or was. Obviously, so you know, it's pretty obvious that you know, that goes to show that it's a contradiction, because you're just making sin worse by tormenting sin. And especially a sin, a being of the level of sin of Lucifer, beyond saving, torturing this being would not make it less of a sin being. It would just make it more of a sin being. And like, some people would say, okay, well, you know, like, Lucifer is already doing everything that could possibly be done that's a sin, so you can't possibly enhance the sin in this being by torturing it, because it's already at the maximum amount of sin. But that's not true, because if Lucifer really was already doing the maximum amount of sin that could be done, then Lucifer wouldn't be doing anything that has the ability to resist sin. Like, of all the things Lucifer could have been doing in heaven that would have been far worse than what he was doing, those are all sins that he was not doing. So it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, God is abusive. Christians are abusive to not notice this. So, you know, the connotation that Lucifer was already beyond the point of being able to sin any harder than he already was is just not true. So obviously, enhancing the suffering of Lucifer is just, really a sin in and of itself. And then my final point to this is there's even more contradictions to this than what I've said so far. It turns out Lucifer, being the embodiment of sin, was not only thrown in turmoil into earth unjustly by this abusive guy called God, but also he was thrown into this garden in a way in which, unfortunately, when he landed in the garden, the garden, it ruined the Garden of Eden. It ruined the earth along with it. It made a planet that was already sin. It made a garden that was already had sin in it become more sin. In a place that already had flaws, it already just enhanced the flaws, which is a sin. The Bible tries to hide this many, many times. But it's just obvious that the Bible is dumb as shit, because look, man, I'm sorry. It's got to be said. After trillions of centuries, it has to be said and brought up for the sake of sanity itself. The Bible is wrong, okay? It's so obvious that that's what happened, and it's so obvious that you really have to have half of a brain or less to not notice by now. But that's what most people have, unfortunately. So it's just really ridiculous. It's got to stop. But yeah, I was going to say that there's definitely no way to disprove this, because you can ask any Christian. You can look up any translation of the Bible on Google, and it'll say, write the words that I said, it'll say that's what happened. That Lucifer was sin itself, and when he went into, fell into there, you're taking sin and putting it into some, and even if Eden or Earth really were not sin until Lucifer was in it, then it doesn't make any sense, because how can a place that is sinless become sin without it having sin in it or being a sin? Something that is not sin cannot acquire sin, because if a thing did not sin, if a thing was not sin, it would not sin, and if it would not sin, it would not acquire sin. That's what the Bible says. So these places would not acquire the sin itself unless they were already sin itself. So it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you could even use an alternative example of this. Let's say you designed a video game, and you think that the world that you made in this video game, this virtual world, do you think that it is a perfect place? If it was a perfect place, then why is it acquiring flaws and sins? It just doesn't add up. If God doesn't acquire sin, yet he is sinless, then why does he acquire sin? These things just don't add up. These things don't add up in the Bible in its own self. The Bible is just garbage. Okay, listen. Even acquiring sin is the equivalent of taking sin itself and bringing it in your presence, in your physical presence. If you were really smart, you would not bring sin into your physical presence. The smarter thing to do would be to bring something that is not sin into your physical presence. That would be the smarter thing to do. And the smarter it is, the less of a sin that it is. by the action of bringing something that's less smart into your presence, bringing that into your presence, by that logic, it's a sin to bring something in your presence that's that is not perfect. Because if it's not, being imperfect is a sin. Because every sin ever described in the Bible matches up with every imperfection described in the Bible, which isn't a coincidence. So obviously, the Bible is just bullshit on every level. On almost every level. So obviously, Christians are just retarded, and neurotypicals are mentally ill. That's all I can say. And like I said, all humans have been mentally ill. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.